Hello, chefs, and good evening. We are back again for another episode of the Jedi Chef Meets the Dragon Warrior Chef podcast. I am Noreen, the budding Phoenix chef here with the Dragon Warrior himself, Chef German Lamb, and the young Jedi Chef Isaiah Gerard, and we will be your hosts for tonight's episode about the importance of community building. You are listening to a unique podcast where we discuss tough yet real topics that need to be heard in the industry. As always, you will hear the truth, real, raw, and unfiltered. Today, we have the honor of chatting with the amazing Kristin Kessler. Kristin has a background in nutrition and dietetics, and she has utilized that in community health for many years. She's currently a project manager at the City of Kingston's Department of Health and Wellness, where I have been interning under her this summer and learning a lot about community wellness and community engagement. We have invited her here today to get real about what community building looks like and her experience with community health. I'm excited to guest host this evening once again, and I want to jump right in and let Kristin introduce herself. Kristin, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you, Noreen. I really appreciate being here. So you gave a little bit, I guess, of my background. I am a registered dietitian. So my background is actually in nutrition. That's what I got my degree in. But I will say that my first love is probably food because I'm originally from New Orleans, and you can't be from New Orleans without loving good food. I was joking with someone earlier that in New Orleans, you are always talking about your next meal. You're eating breakfast and you're saying, what are we going to have for lunch? You eat lunch, you say, what are we going to have for dinner? And at one point, as I was growing up, I realized that food also impacted our bodies. We could eat food that was really nourishing for our physical health, or food that perhaps wasn't so good for it. I've been a dietitian though for 11, I don't remember the number of years now I've been a dietitian, and I found that food can be nourishing for many different reasons, not just for your body, but also for your mental health, for your family, for your culture, for your community. And so, yeah, I feel like I built a career working in community nutrition, community food, and now I get to do that for the city of Kingston in New York's Hudson Valley, which is quite frankly a dream job for me at the moment. And is that a good enough introduction for myself?
That's perfect. No, thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for your time today. So to get started, community, it's an important topic of discussion for many of us today, not only because an election is coming up, but recent Gallup polls in 2023 show that community engagement is more important to Americans now than it was 20 years ago. So 55% of Americans polled state that community activities and engagement are extremely important to them. So I want to start by just defining what community and community building means to you and why you think it's important. Kristin?
Yeah. So, there are so many different forms of communities we can identify in so many different ways. For my job in particular, community for us is the city of Kingston. But to me, community really just means identifying or creating a we among all of the me's. So it's finding this connectedness that we have between each other. It's interesting to hear that that is more important for Americans than it has been ever before, because it's also something that I'm seeing a lot in public health and in community health that I work in, is this emphasis on social connectedness and civic engagement. So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, they do something called the county health rankings. And so they rank all different counties based upon different factors, and they put out a theme oftentimes each year. And right now their theme is on civic health and civic engagement. So not just through civic engagement through the voting process, through the political process, but also just through your community. And there's another group, Healthy Places by Design, that is focusing on social connectedness. And it's another group that defines wellness in so many different ways by these 5 different domains. Once again, one of them is social connectedness. And so I say that because to me, community is really, the fabric of how we can be connected to each other. For my work, what that really means is working through food. I mentioned my background being from New Orleans because I believe that food is not just the macro and micronutrients that we define them by. As a dietitian, we define them that way, but food is really that it has power to bring us together. And so trying to utilize food to bring communities together to either find shared like commonalities or to share something that's different about their communities with each other so we can learn from each other. I think that's just so important.
So thank you. I love the Robert Wood. You said the Robert Wood Johnson, they pick a theme every year.
Yeah, so I maybe it's every year, maybe it's every other year. I just know they've been sending me a lot of emails lately about civic engagement and how important that is, as well as healthy places by design too. And I think they said that folks who feel a strong sense of social connectedness, which I think is just another way of saying community, was and I'm trying to remember something about boosting their lifespan by 50%.
Wow.
So it's important for our health, not just that we feel this sense of community, but literally our physical health. We are healthier when we have community around us.
Wow, that's amazing. Chef Lamb, what does community mean to you and why do you think it's important?
Well, I'm donning the white jacket here, and the culinary hospitality industry, it's beautiful, but it's also very dark. And if you don't have discipline and structure, if your body, mind, spirit, and food doesn't become this fist all together, then you become one of the casualties. And in one way, it's like Mother Nature. That's part of the journey. So for me, I always realize that someone in the group lives it, breathes it, does it every day. And to find that, that is going to be the challenging part because in our industry, we have mentors, and that's where mentors comes to life. That person knows what to do when they wear this white jacket and when their white jacket, it's off. And how do you rebuild yourself, repair yourself? So in one way, it's like what's going on right now in the Olympics, right? I think about, there's testing for doping, right? People want to use shortcut. Instead, the food group's right in front of you. So the training is right in front of you. It's more about having the right mentors teaching you. It's up to you to bring that community together. And it's really hard because think about it. Who wants a sculpture body, right? Who wants a mind that has philosophy and principle? Who wants a spirit that's a phoenix or dragon warrior? And who wants, when you look at food, you could say, yes, I could eat that instead of, oh, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So in one way, that's how I approach it, but that's how I mentor. So it's my approach that I came up with right there. And to me, because everybody is unique and different. They have a different DNA.
Yeah, absolutely. Individual uniqueness can be our strong suits, but sometimes we let our differences perhaps get in the way of bonding and finding ways that we can strengthen each other. Isaiah, what are you what community building looks like to you and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, so to me, community building is super important, and community is all about connection to me. And as you said, Kristen, connection, we have connections through many things, and food is a big part of that connection that we have. The meals that we all decide to share together, the food that brings us together, it connects us all. And I feel like food, when we share our food with other people, when we cook for somebody else, we share love with that other person. And in turn, that's engaging a stronger sense of community. Even just simply like buying a meal for somebody, those small acts of kindness that we could show throughout our community, show that we care for others is super, super important. And I feel that it goes a long way. And when we have a stronger community, we can come together and find things that we relate in instead of finding things that divide us, because I feel like in this world today, there's a lot of, people with different opinions in politics and, whatever the problem might be. But I feel like we focus too much on that and we focus less on, at the end of the day, we're all here. We're all trying to get through life. We're all trying to figure things out. Let's help each other. Let's get together and let's all engage, all find something that we can relate to and know that everybody's going through something. So how can I help you out? And then when you help one person, the next person will help you. And that's what community engagement is about, and it's so important, especially in the culinary industry. At the end of the day, if you're in a kitchen and one station doesn't succeed, the whole restaurant is not going to succeed. So it's less about it's your responsibility. It's more about, okay, how can we succeed together? How can we make it all work together as a community? How can we build and get stronger? I think that's super important, and I think that's lost in the workplace. In some workplaces, especially in the culinary industry, and then with technology and everything, it's been lost engagement. So I think it's important to bring that back and bring back getting together and helping one another. So to me, that's the best definition I could think of community.
Yeah, I've been thinking about community a lot. I think with the Olympics and with the election coming up here in the US, it's been on my mind, and it's been great learning and engaging more in Kingston with that. And you guys might laugh when I say this, but I've been watching this Korean drama, right? And I noticed this cultural difference just in the show where it takes place in a hospital. But anytime the characters interact with each other, something they ask each other is like, are you sleeping well? Have you eaten? Are you doing okay? And I think that is very important when it comes to what community looks like. And it's just caring for each other, regardless if you agree with each other's political opinions or you find that you have differences and uniqueness, that really pushing aside that and finding the things that bond us that build that strength as a team, like you were saying, Isaiah, is really important. And just caring for people, asking how someone is doing, saying hello. That is kind of what community looks like to me. And it is incredibly important. I mean, it's well known that social connectedness is very helpful for emotional well-being. And just hearing from you, Kristin, that it increases your lifespan by that much, that's pretty incredible. So all the more reason to look around and find people around you that you can lean on and that can lean on you, so you can, be successful as we go through this life.
Yeah, and I just want to add, even like the small things make a difference, even if it's just saying hi to somebody at the store. It's something like that. They may be having a bad day, but and then they're just looking for somebody to talk to, or just somebody to notice them. It goes a long way. So simple things like that. You don't need money. You don't need this. You don't need the It's something that anybody could do and everybody could do to kind of bring people together.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about hospitality, is that opportunity to just say hi and smile to everyone that comes in through the door, and talking to patrons at the table or even with your team in the back of house. There's a big social connectedness and community in the food industry. And being part of the food industry provides a really unique opportunity to become a cornerstone in your local community. Sometimes community building's not all sunshine and rainbows. There can be barriers and speed bumps when trying to understand and engage with the community, especially when opening a new food business. As food entrepreneurs, it's really important to understand the community you want to join as part of operating that business. So I'd like, Kristin, if you could answer, how can we forge successful and just partnerships as food entrepreneurs and chefs in our local community when we're operating businesses?
Yeah, I think, this is reminding me of a business that we have in Kingston, actually. We have a ton of amazing food businesses in Kingston. I feel like people don't realize that Kingston is a food destination, and it is my job. I've decided to put Kingston on the map in terms of that, if people don't know already. And one of them was, there's a place called Tilda's Kitchen, which is really fantastic. And I remember talking with the person who started it, the owner of it, and he was saying how they came in, and it was interesting because he was like, I want to serve food that this community wants. So he started asking questions. And that might not sound that big of a deal, but the fact that he was like, well, I'm just going to go attend community meetings. He shows up to basically every community meeting that I am at. He is there. Someone from his staff is there. They go to our health and wellness meetings that we have. There is a project that's going on in one of our neighborhoods where they're doing a bit of planning. There's a grant that the city received to do planning to create something that the community wants whenever they do development. Someone from his team is in these meetings. And so I think he's really successful in that sort of way because he puts himself out there and he asks questions and has not been afraid to change the menu based upon what the community really desires. And I think he gets responses. He gets people coming in the door. He's seen more as a cornerstone in the community. And maybe, you know, I don't think everybody has to be that. I think you can have different objectives, but if you are someone who's looking to start a food business and you want to contribute to this feeling of social connectedness in the community, I think that's really important, is being present and asking questions and then having a follow through with it. Not just the listening, it's also the responding to it. It's showing that you heard and that you integrated what community desires. You know, so he did a great job with that. We have a place across the street called Calcutta Kitchens. Aditi, who runs it, is amazing. She does that as well. I could shout out literally all of the restaurants in Kingston, but I'm not going to. But I think those are some of the really wonderful ways they become, you know, our friends and our neighbors, not just another restaurant, it seems like.
Awesome. No, it's great that they changed the menu at Tilda's. I see it's seasonal, but also they want to cater to the people that they're working in that community. So that's really great to hear. Chef Lamb.
Oh, I love this one right here because if you think about it, when I worked at McDonald's, think about the recipe that they have. They're able to start any location in the world, and suddenly they have people and managing positions. So to me, when it talks about community, you need to create a system that is able to withstand turbulence. And turbulence meaning you have labor shortage, you have a labor staff. You got to think about that. Then you got to think about outsourcing ingredients, farm to table, seasonal. Then you got to think about, okay, what happened if Mother Nature's weather kind of like is not the best? What does it do? It increases prices, right? So there's a lot of factors, especially right now, when you're thinking about going into the industry versus, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's a different game. So one way, the rules are different. So right now, if you don't get that system and recipe right, you will close in the next 6 months or a year. You will close, and that's our industry. But if you understand what am I going to produce, where the community, it's going to love the food that we make, the beverages, everything that organic is unique but it's authentic. Now you really got to think, but you got to make it simple where the community understands it. It's like plant-based food. I love plant-based food. I mean, it's amazing, but you got to think about the combinations, and you have to know who is your scientist. There's a lot of roles that you have, not just, it sounds great, but there's so many layers to think about. When you open that door, you, the owner, could go home and enjoy with your family, enjoy with your kids, instead of having a heart attack mode and go, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because that's part of our industry, which is so exciting. So for me, it's really having a, snapshot of what it is and what could be, but it comes back to people. You're bringing a team, just like the Olympics. You're going in there for one objective, gold medal. You're not there for silver. You're not there for bronze. And an entrepreneur, because if you get the gold, that means you're able to give great competitive wages. That means you have health insurance for your team. So there's a cost to it. So then you have to have your team understand why, lack of mistakes, it's not acceptable, but we just took ourselves out of the game. So there is a consequences to understand this. And when people understand this, they're like, hell yeah, we deserve a 10 because we put a lot of work into it. And once they understand that goal, it is beautiful. It's like this fist right here. But to get to this fist, a lot of aches and pains.
Mhm. I like that. I didn't, just like I had mentioned, there is a lot of work and heavy lifting that can come with community building. So it was really great to hear that. And it just leads you to success at the end of the day. If you do the work, you'll find the success, you'll build the partnerships. Isaiah, how do you think we can forge successful and just partnerships?
Yeah, so I think there's many ways to do this, but I think one of the greatest ways to do it is just to, like Kristin said, get out there, get involved, and be present. That's one of the biggest things that you could do. Just make sure that you're present in the community that you want to impact, and you know kind of their wants and their desires, and you make it happen. You bring it to fruition. I think that's one of the most important things. Volunteering is one of the best ways to do it. Getting volunteering at local places, local restaurants, local shelters, local wherever, just to kind of know what your community is going through, know their needs, know their wants is super important. And that's one of the best ways to impact the community and build relationships, I believe. And that also shows that you care. And if you're a business and you're doing that and you're showing that you care and you're showing that you put effort into the community, more people will support your business because people like supporting businesses that are involved within the community. So I think that's another very beneficial thing to do is showing your support and helping if you can financially, but not even financially, just being there, being present, and being even somewhere where people could go to your spot and talk to the employees and have a good conversation with them. Somewhere that could be their home away from home, is super important. So I think those are some key points in developing key community engagement.
Absolutely. I hear a lot of listening and understanding what the needs are of not just the community, but of your employees as well is really important. And a big part of listening and then responding, I think, is trust. Because if you listen and you don't respond and integrate the requests in a way that works for you and for your employees or for the community, then you're not nurturing trust. And nurturing trust is a huge part of community building. I know a lot of Americans today, there's a dissent between trusting the government organizations, big corporations, businesses. There are a lot of trust issues in our modern world. But since it's such a big part of community building and engagement, what does specifically building trust look like between an entrepreneur or a community member and like a government official? Kristin, what do you think?
I'll leave a pause there as the government employee here. I think working, so, the city of Kingston is pretty small. We have about 24,000 people. Before this, I lived in New York, so that's 8.5 million. And I lived in Austin before that, so some pretty big cities. And Kingston is a place that really taught me the importance and the value of this relationship building. Not that it wasn't happening before, but when the people that I'm working with, so I am a government employee, but working with community members or working with business owners, they're also my neighbors. I don't go home, 30, 45 minutes away. I actually live in the town over, but I go shopping at their stores. I go to their restaurants often. Our kids go to the same daycare. Like we all see each other. We see each other at the farmers market. And so building trust was really important because I think we were starting to see each other also as human beings. So you kind of have this understanding of the person behind the work. And the trust part comes in when you're consistently showing up. I think that is the most important thing, is when you show up for these things. When I go to a youth gallery opening or something because one of my community partners is organizing that, and they see that I'm a person that has similar perhaps values to them, or that we just all want the best for our community, and I think that's important. Once again, communication, this like sharing back, is showing that I've listened to you, I've taken what you have shared with me, and I'm showing you what I'm doing about it. And I think that last part often gets missed because we say, okay, we heard, there's 3 steps. It's like, okay, we heard it, and then maybe that's where you stop. And then I've integrated it. Okay, I've done the thing that you've asked me to do. Maybe you've gotten to the second step. But then that third step is also making sure that you share that back. And that's not always necessarily to toot your own horn. I think it's important to build that trust to say, hey, I listened to you. Like, I want you to come in. I'm inviting you. I'm sharing this warmth. I'm sharing my invitation for you to come into my space, into my work, to continue to build that two-way communication that we have between each other. I talk a lot in my work about power. And I think power is really important to talk when you're talking about trust building and you're talking about community building. I can imagine the power structures in a restaurant and a kitchen. You have power structures within the government. You have power structures within the community, like who holds power and who has historically been taken away from power, power's taken away from them. Like everyone's born with power. I hate to use the word empower, by the way. I like to say supporting people and reclaiming their power, because that implies that no one has power when they're born and they have to have someone else give it to them. So considering those power dynamics, and I think by creating an authentic two-way relationship where you're both giving and taking, that helps to kind of mitigate those power dynamics, and that helps to continue to build trust. And I think as government, last comment, we can always do better than we are doing. So hopefully I'm just one person going out there and trying to mitigate that. But, it's tough, it's hard, it's messy, and it takes time.
I love that you brought up power when we talked about trust. That was really interesting. And I like the idea everyone's born with power, and just recognizing that, and recognizing other human beings as human, and just meeting each other where you are and inviting each other into your lives is a good way to build trust. Chef Lamb, what do you think about trust?
Oh, trust is beautiful, because in our industry, if there's no trust, you got a pink slip and, you're walking down to your next position. And for me, right here, it's like accountability. And like right now, I would say, I hear saying that this generation doesn't have work ethic, this generation doesn't have care. I'm like, they do. You have to know how to communicate. And accountability, meaning once you put on uniform, whether it's the front of the house or whether it's the back of the house, there is a ethic code. And ethic code is professionalism, no shortchange, sanitation. That means the way you present yourself. That means, guess what? You want to look clean and polished, not just to your customer, but you want to showcase yourself to your coworkers, right? Then safety. Safety is meaning, making sure your environment, culture, it's clean, and it's safe. So it's not just the employer that's responsible, but it's also the coworkers. Usually in any business, usually someone brings in garbage into the workplace. Now, if someone does that, does someone say, hey, we got to clean that up? Sorry, but we can't do this here. And maybe because that person wasn't developed and trained properly and didn't explain about consequences, so to me, it's really about, you make a mistake, but now the stakes are high. And that is the difference right now. So for me to trust you is punctual. 5 days a week, you work 40 hours, show me. That is your scorecard. Because I'm going to say, hey, you were on time, or you were late, or no call, no show. Then I got to go, that's unacceptable, So that's our issue with our industry, that you have to say, hey, if you do not communicate with me with the respect that I'm giving you, then I'm going to give you something that is part of the business structure, So trust, it's really, but that person's going to go, wow, thank you. Thank you for giving me these ethics that someone else didn't ingrain in me. And once they are ingrained in you, that person becomes a superstar, a great ambassador for your operation.
Awesome. I love that. I love the balance between like power and also accountability. Because I think accountability is really important when we talk about power and trust. Isaiah, what do you think?
Yeah, so to me, trust is a big thing. And I like to look at trust as a lot of people don't look at it this way, but I like to look at it this way is I trust you until you disprove like my trust. I'll trust you, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt first, And I think looking at it that way helps me to have more of an open mind for people and be more accepting to certain things and then allow room for mistakes and like coaching, I think so that's one of the best ways I like to look at it. And I think in terms of like building trust in like, I guess with the workplace, like as a manager, you should trust your employees to be able to do their job. You should trust your employees that you hired them. You should trust them that they're going to know how to do what they're supposed to do. You're going to not micromanage coach, but not micromanage them and just trust them to, do what you hired them to do. And I think once you build that trust, it allows for more creativity. It allows for more engagement between different people. And I like Kristin said, people are people. Humans are humans. At the end of the day, your position is just a position. Everybody is born with power. Even though you might be in a different position than somebody else, doesn't mean you're better than them. It doesn't mean the trust is still there. And at the end of the day, you're still a person. We all use the bathroom the same. We all, at the end of the day, everything is the same. You just have a different position, might be making more money, but we should have that mutual trust between each other. And like even my boss at my current job, we have that trust between each other. We could joke around with each other. We could have a good time, mess with each other, stuff like that, where, it's still, I still have respect for him as a boss, but I'm not looked down towards. And I think that's the best I think relationship to have, and that builds a sense of community.
Awesome. Yeah, I think like recognizing just the humanity in each other is really important. That's what it all comes back to when we talk about community. Like you're a human being, I'm a human being. We relate on that. Let's go from there. And trust for me, I think boils down to one saying: you say what you mean and you mean what you say. So if you're going to make a promise, I expect that you would uphold it. And if you have an opinion or you're experiencing something, I want you to say what's going on. And I think that's for me what trust really looks like, regardless between family members, friends, a government official, entrepreneur, whoever, a person at the bus stop. Like, say what you mean and mean what you say, and we'll have trust and we'll be good. As we're getting close to the end here, I want to shift into future thinking. We know now that more Americans find community engagement really important. And in the modern information and tech age, what do you guys think, like what shifts are there in terms of community engagement and communication? Or what does the future of community building look like with social media and communication like vectors changing? What do you guys think that looks like?
Now, I know you're asking about social media and all of that, but I actually think that the future of community building is going back to third spaces. So third spaces, first space is your home, your second space is your work, and your third space is something that is not your home, not your work, that you can interact with other people. Maybe some people could argue that social media can be third spaces because you're connected to a community that you don't normally have in front of you. I know that I don't use social media very often, but I have a toddler. And when I sometimes share about my toddler, just, I don't know, something about my day where he's probably like yelling at me and throwing a dinosaur across the room, or like refusing to sleep, I put it on like Instagram or whatever. I have so many people who respond to it who are parents who like I'm not even that close with, just like, oh my gosh, me too. So it kind of feels like this digital third space, but at the same time, so I actually live in Woodstock, New York. They have a youth center and they are working on this whole project for planning around the youth center. And one of the kind of the things they're putting forward is that we have a lack of third spaces now in our world. Not as many people are going to houses of worship as they used to. Libraries are being defunded. Parks and Rec departments are not being adequately funded necessarily. This is not a comment on Kingston or Woodstock, by the way. This is just like nationally. So please don't come for our government. But we don't have those third spaces anymore. And I think part of that is because we have social media, we have all these ways that we're only engaging with people either online or inside, and we don't have to sit next to a stranger. Maybe I'll shout out like restaurants are a place that you can go and sit next to strangers, and you have to be in the same space as each other without fighting each other, without having some sort of contention. Hopefully you're eating delicious food while you're doing it. So like you're in a really good mood. But having those third spaces, I've seen a big focus on that in terms of public health and community health, and making sure that we both have the infrastructure. We're creating these third spaces. We're making parks. We're funding libraries. We're rebuilding youth centers, but also that we're putting programming in there so people want to go there and people feel safe there.
Awesome. Yeah, I love third spaces. Always try to look for those. Really quickly, in the last couple minutes, Chef Lamb, what do you think the future of community building looks like?
Well, if you want to build a community, it starts with you. And right now, strong leadership starts with you. Like I was saying to you, body, mind, spirit, and food. You want to do 1,000 sit-ups? Do you want to run? Do you want to swim? Do you want to add martial arts? Because those are the glue that it's going to give you that leadership where you're able to say, hey, I love technology. I love social media. There's a great park. There's a great wood right there. There's a great beach. There's a great pond. Use Mother Nature at its finest. You don't want to go to the gym. You have your iPhone, Spotify, boom, put some jams on and create your own program. So I understand what Kristin said about, the government, they create, but then also they cut. So accountability is don't wait on anyone. You create that space. You know what I mean? Because in our industry, it's about do you copycat a chef of what they're making? Like plant-based food, I love plant-based food. Yeah, but is there love? Is there substance? So when I taste that, do I fall in love with you? If I don't, then there's no substance, So in our industry, to me, it's like I call it the BS. I can see it right there because it's like Mick Jagger. There's a reason why his whole face has so many lines. He went through the war. He was jamming. He went through, the highs and lows, the dark places, and he had to clean himself up. So for me, it's really understanding in the future is, the body, mind, spirit, and food. It's beautiful, but also it could be a bad place if there is no guideline, and now you self-destruct. But if you're able to have guardrails, and now you're able to teach community where think about, third space, it could be very harmful. But then you're like, you came out with a recipe. So now you're teaching someone else like, hey, you're not going to get, mentally because a stranger said something, So to me, that is my approach of saying you need to become the strong leader, because if you want to be the CEO and founder of a company, of a community, people are going to look up to you, and you've got to have something that no one else has.
Amazing. Well, we're out of time. So I wanted to thank you all so much for your insight and your time today. This episode will impact everyone listening and everyone that they are connected to. Stay authentic, go out there and do activities, meet people. And thank you guys for listening, and see you next time on the Jedi Chef Meets